My name is Randy, and whether you're here to transform your body, pick up some tips, or just enjoy the journey, welcome. Today is a push day, which means it's time to hit the chest, shoulders, and triceps hard. So grab your dumbbells, your motivation, and maybe a protein shake for moral support, because we're getting into it. Oh, and don't forget to drop a comment below. Maybe tell me your favorite push exercise, or just roast me if my form isn't perfect. The YouTube algorithm loves engagement, so let's work together on this. First up, the Incline Dumbbell Press, a classic for building the upper chest. A well-developed upper chest makes a huge difference in the overall aesthetics. It helps fill out the area below the collarbones, making the whole chest look bigger and more balanced. I start with a few lighter warm-up sets to loosen up the joints and get the blood flowing. The last thing I want is to pick up heavy dumbbells cold and then have my shoulders file a formal complaint. Once I'm warmed up, I hit 3 working sets, picking a weight that's challenging but doesn't make me rethink my life decisions. The goal here isn't to max out. It's to get quality reps with good form. Keep the elbows slightly tucked in. You want to press at a slight angle, not straight out to the sides like a T. That keeps the stress off your shoulders and onto your chest. Lower the dumbbells under control. If your reps look like you're in a free fall, you're missing a lot of the benefit. The lowering of the weight and the stretch at the bottom are important parts of this movement. Right after the presses, I go into Incline Dumbbell Flyes. Since my chest is already activated, I don't need much of a warm-up. I start my first set with slightly lighter weight to ease into the movement, then bump it up for the next 2 sets. The flies are all about control. If you're treating them like a press with extra flair, you're doing them wrong. The goal is to get a deep stretch at the bottom and a strong contraction on the way up. If you're swinging the weights around like you're guiding a plane in for a landing, let's slow things down a little bit. Have a slight bend in your elbows. Your arms should not be locked out. Think of holding a big beach ball as you lower the weights. This keeps the tension on the chest and prevents unnecessary strain on the shoulders and biceps. If your arms are too straight at the bottom, it may feel like your biceps are going to rip apart. This is a bad thing. Go ahead and bend the arms a little bit. Focus on squeezing the pecs, not the arms. If you feel more activation in your biceps than your chest, you're probably doing more of a curling motion. Picture hugging a tree rather than just lifting the dumbbells. One thing I recently fine-tuned is figuring out the best incline angle for my body. A lot of people just randomly guess or go with whatever setting the bench is on. But here's what I do. I set the bench up at a few different angles. I lay down and mimic the exercise motion with one arm and use my free hand to feel where my chest activates the most. If I don't feel it in the upper chest, I adjust the angle until I do. The angles matter. Too low, and it feels like a flat bench fly. Too high, and my shoulders take over. Next up, bench press, but with my Cambered specialty bar. This bar allows a deeper range of motion than a regular straight barbell, giving me the stretch benefits of dumbbells while letting me load up more weight. More weight equals more growth. At least that's what I tell myself to justify the suffering. One underrated part of this bench press, the setup. If you lie down wrong and don't have a good bar path, you're going to feel awkward the whole set. So take a second to plant your feet, engage your lats, and lock in before pressing. It makes a huge difference. Something else to think about, like you need more. Try not to hit the J-cups when you raise and lower the bar. I do it once in a while, and when I do, it jars me a bit, and then I lose my rhythm. And now we're moving on to one arm cable flies for some isolation work. I'm using the low pulley for this, which changes the angle of the movement compared to a traditional fly. At the start, it might look like a regular cable fly, but there's a reason for this setup. Instead of bringing my hand straight across, I'm bringing it up and across my body. This subtle change puts the emphasis on specific areas of the chest. This move is really targeting the upper and inner chest, right in this area. A lot of people struggle to develop the inner portion of their chest, myself included. And this is one of those exercises that helps fill in the gap. Now, a common mistake is turning this into a front delt raise. If you're lifting at a high angle, you will target your delts more than your chest. Based on how low your pulley is, you may need to stand further away to get the right angle. Standing further lowers the angle and focuses more on the chest. Standing close raises the angle and focuses more on the front delts. All right, now let's do the front delts. They already got plenty of work from the pressing earlier, but I like to finish them off with some isolation work to really ensure they get the attention they deserve. I use a landmine setup for this. One arm presses, controlled, explosive, and without throwing the barbell across the room. One of the biggest advantages of the landmine press over a standard overhead press is that it follows a more natural movement pattern. Instead of pressing the weight straight overhead, which can be challenging on the shoulders sometimes, the landmine press follows an arc, which makes it easier on the joints while still hitting the front delts pretty hard. Also, if you ever had shoulder discomfort from overhead pressing, the landmine press is a great alternative. It keeps the weight more in front rather than directly over your head, reducing stress on the rotator cuffs while still building size and strength. Now let's talk about the setup, because if you're lifting the bar from the ground every time, you're doing an extra workout even before starting the first rep. That's why I use a stand to hold the landmine in place. The goal is to make the exercise harder, not the setup. Before I got the stand, what I would use is put a bench in the way and have the bar just rest on the bench to give it some height. That was not ideal, so I got the stand. Now it's time for triceps. I'm hitting them with a superset, some skull crushers followed immediately by a narrow grip press. I start with skull crushers, keeping my upper arms at a slightly backward angle. This keeps the weight over my head at full extension rather than directly over my chest. Why? Because if the weight is over your chest, there's really no tension on the triceps anymore. You're just holding the dumbbells like you forgot what to do next. Keeping that backward angle ensures that the triceps stay under constant tension, which is what we want. Also, by starting with the arms back a little bit, it will allow for a deeper stretch at the bottom. You are not limited by where your skull is sitting. You actually can reach back behind your head. Without resting, I move right into the narrow grip press. This shifts the focus to the medial and lateral heads of the triceps, making sure we hit the entire tricep muscle group. Now I go back to the skull crushers, and at this point, I can really feel the fatigue setting in. This is where good form matters most. If you're tempted to start bouncing the weight off your forehead for momentum, don't. The goal is controlled movement, not a concussion. I keep that same backward arm angle as before, making sure I'm getting full extension at the top without losing tension on the triceps. And by this time, the burn is real. One more time with the narrow grip press. This is where muscle failure creeps in. The triceps are already fried from the skull crushers, so the presses feel 10 times harder than the first round. Now for the finisher, I do some one-arm tricep pushdowns. At this point, my triceps are pretty tired, but that's exactly why this final exercise is so effective. It doesn't take a lot of weight. Using one arm at a time allows me to focus on each side individually, making sure both arms get equal work. Here's some form tips for you. Keep the upper arm as still as possible. If the upper arm starts swinging back and forth, the movement turns into a partial lat exercise, and we're not here for that today. The long head of the tricep is only fully engaged when the upper arm stays fixed in place. Press down in a controlled motion. No yanking, no sudden jerks. Just smooth, deliberate movement. The goal is to feel the muscle working, not see how fast you can move the handle. I bring the handle all the way up until I feel a good stretch in the triceps, then press it all the way down until my arms are fully extended. Cutting the range short means leaving gains on the table. One thing I really focus on here is finishing each rep with a strong contraction. It's tempting to just move the weight up and down, but the real benefit comes from pausing briefly, if you can, at the bottom, and squeezing the triceps hard. If you're not flexing the muscles at full extension, you're missing out. By the second set, the small movement feels a whole lot bigger. Well, that's it. Push day complete. Chest, shoulders, triceps, done. My arms feel like they might refuse to function for the next hour. But that's how you know it was a good workout. Next up, pull day. Subscribe to this channel so you don't miss it. Until then, keep pushing forward, stay consistent, and I'll see you in the next one.